Patients who woke up from a long coma, what's your story? How different were things?
I had a friend who was put into a medically induced coma after a bad accident that lasted months. When she woke up, she recalled being able to remember hearing everything since the moment she entered the hospital. She even remembered things her mom had said to her while she was being transferred from one hospital to another. She said things looked different than the way she had pictured it in her head, but she was conscious and heard everything. She just couldn't move, speak or do anything really.
Back in high school, a girl I knew who was younger than me was in a car accident. She was in a coma for around a year, maybe a little less. When she came out of it, she remembered snippets of conversations around her while she was out and even seeing a few people. The only thing was, she said everything she saw was red-tinged, so she'd see her mom at her bedside but it'd look like a red filter had been put over her vision. She was annoyed at how many times people told her it was all right to go on, that her mom could be free if she did. She identified a few voices she knew for sure and told her mom, who had a lot fewer friends afterward. She was 14 when the wreck happened and never made it back to school, getting her GED at 19. She still has mobility issues 30+ years later, but she's doing pretty well now considering everything.
I was out for 7 weeks. I woke up to a pandemic and no one allowed in. Thank God for Skype.
Not me, but my cousin was involved in a car accident in 2012, so I was about 6. He finally woke up from his coma December last year, just to wake up to a worldwide pandemic and many celebrities which he loved had died. His old house also got burned down during the Australian bushfires. In fact, the first thing he said when he woke up was, "How long was I asleep? Why are you all wearing masks?" Edit, he was awake for 11 hours or so before he spoke.
Well, it first started off as a dislocated shoulder, and after they put it back in place they just kept giving me Dilaudid, and at first it was like every hour, then they switched it to every 30 minutes, then they switched it every 15 minutes, and I just got so sleepy they moved me up into a room last I remembered from the ER, and then my friend kept saying my name but I couldn't move, I couldn't open my eyes but I could still hear her. Then I heard one of the nurses come in and she couldn't get me to wake up, so then the head nurse came in and she claimed that I was faking it, but no matter what she did she just said I wouldn't wake up. So it was at this point they said that the nurse who was in charge of my painkillers put me into an accidental overdose coma. And even still in a coma they kept giving me painkillers for a while, like probably 1 or 2 days before the head nurse actually noticed. I mean, it wasn't a long coma, but I still felt like I wanted to share my experience.
My dad was in an induced coma for a bit over a month years ago, had to undergo a very difficult surgery and he had multiple complications afterwards, so that's why it took them so long to wake him up. Not a very long coma, but he couldn't wrap his head around how we went from freezing temperatures to nice spring sunny days. Maybe off topic, but I have to tell this one, he had some very weird dreams during the coma. He told us one time, he dreamt about being at his own funeral. And I'm not kidding, the walls of the hall were covered in pesto lasagna. Okay, it's a bit less weird maybe since we're Italian, but I still laugh thinking about it. Edit. Typo I caught afterwards.
I was in a run-of-the-mill surgery. Everything was fine until they removed the instruments. Someone had forgotten to sheath the scalpel after they inserted into my thigh en route to my heart. When they removed the instruments, my arteries were cut open from my thigh into my heart. I lost all but 1 liter of blood and was put on life support after extensive attempts to control my bleeding and 12 blood transfusions. When I came out of the coma 3 months after the surgery, they removed 5 tubes that had replaced my normal bodily functions. At that time I could only breathe deeply enough to saturate my blood to the 70% level. Mid to high 90s is considered a normal range. I had, therefore, to learn how to breathe, something that is normally an automatic function from birth onward. It took 1 month to learn how to breathe without using an oxygen machine and an additional 3 years to be able to stop using the machine. Prior to the surgery I had 3% body fat and was leg pressing 1,100 pounds on a 5-day-a-week schedule. When I had a new-to-me doctor come to ask if he could examine me, I agreed but asked why he wanted to do that. He said he had previously examined about 20 patients who had similar mistakes made to them, but that I was the only one he had ever seen other than in the morgue, and wanted to understand why I was alive.
I was put into a medically induced coma for a few days after a failed suicide attempt. I could hear everything that was going on around me. I could feel everything around me, like a catheter change and my parents holding my hands, etc. It felt like a nap, like I had only been out for a few hours, but in reality it was 5 days.
For people who say that they could remember convos and everything said around them in the coma, Is it more like you can just remember it when you wake up, or is the coma real time and just feels like sleep paralysis?
I have never been in a coma personally. But I've seen enough medical TV shows to know that when the patient finally wakes, she immediately checks themselves out of the hospital and solves the crime.
I know someone who's in a coma for a month from hitting their head in a car accident. They had complete amnesia and had to learn to walk, talk, eat, use a fork, use the bathroom, all of it all over again. They got epilepsy, and every seizure they had damaged their brain a little bit more. Their life was tragic.
Not a coma, but I woke up during a colonoscopy. I remember saying, "Ow, that hurts," and being sedated.
Not crazy long, but as a kid I had meningitis and encephalitis, and it was noticed by me falling into a coma that every medical professional thought I'd die in. I woke up 2 weeks later, and it felt like teleporting. I had no awareness during, and didn't even have awareness of how long it had been, like when you're asleep. I was just suddenly in a hospital, hooked up to painful IVs.
Was it like a constant month-long dream?
IDK, I'm still waiting to wake up.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.